Hey guys, thank you so very much for hanging out with us today. Let me just put this on me for a second. I want to thank you so much for hanging out at the 2016 Google Hangout of Taking Back Your Life series. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy to say it's here. This is the first of the series. Now, many of you know me as a radio show host of The Conversation and the founder of the Survival Radio Network. But most of you probably don't know, because we don't go that far back, that I actually started everything from a book I wrote back in 2009 called How to Survive the Next 365. That's where all the survival wordage and ideologies comes from, is the book that I wrote. Here it is. And from that book came a kind of secondary principal metaphysical series that I did called The Phoenix Effect, which is what this series really is all about. It's out-of-box thinking. It's holistic wellness. It is metaphysical quantum physics at its best. It's ideologies that many of you have heard of but don't quite know what it is. So what this series is going to try to do is bring on some elite professionals who specialize in many of the fields we're going to be talking about. And we're going to just have a fireside chat with them. So allow me to introduce our guest of today. So my first guest is the founder of RaiseYourVibration.ca, an organization dedicated to providing education, inspiration, and support related to understanding and enhancing vibrational frequency for overall health and well-being, personally and globally. She is also the author of Raise Your Vibration, Transform Your Life, and How to Raise the Vibration Around You. Please welcome all the way from Canada, sound healer, Miss Dawn James. Hey, Dawn, welcome aboard, and thank you so very much for hanging out with us.
Hello, Clark. It's been quite a reunion. I love reconnecting with you. Very excited to be on your new show. So
well, it's you that makes me international.
Likewise.
Love it. Hey, Don, for those who don't quite know who you are, or, and by the way, shame on you if you don't, or they have not heard of your journey yet, I guess let's start out here. Where did you initially come to find information or discover your own vibrational frequency and what it is and what that really means to a layman?
Well, for me, my journey started back in 2003. I had a very profound experience that totally changed my world in a day. During that profound event, I went through what some people call a near-death experience. It was a little more deeper than that for me. I had an awakening where I realized for the first time that I wasn't just a physical being. There was this huge piece of me that was pure energy and energetic. And that is what woke up in me, that whole spiritual side, that spiritual nature. And for moments, hours, I got to experience existing in that state, a state of consciousness, higher consciousness, and without boundary, just energy. And when that happened, it really, when I came back to my physical self, that's what sparked my interest in wanting to explore this whole side of us that we hardly talk about. Our spiritual side, or the energy systems within our body, the intelligence of the energies that we have contained in our little vessel. And so I started a quest to learn more about the different forms of energy, and what really got my attention was vibrational frequency. And that is understanding how we influence and are influenced by our own energy system. The most profound system that I speak to in my book is bioelectricity. And so bioelectricity is just one form of energy that we have, but it's ingrained in our biology as well as our consciousness. And so by understanding bioelectricity, we get into the definition of vibrational frequency. We start understanding how our bodies work and how we can influence all of the mechanics within our being, mind, body, and spirit.
I want to stop you there just to go back a little bit, because one of the things I know for me when I started reading up on vibrational frequency, and when I read your book so many years ago, the one thing as I was trying to share this with other people who had not heard of it or had not thought of that, and I want to know, did you have any difficulty with this topic? But it was religion. Many times I've discovered that people who tend to be more one-sided with religion and don't really look at it as any type of spirituality. It's just a blanket form of religion and ideologies, and this is, we only follow this and nothing else makes sense. Was it, I don't know if that had any bearing on your life, but have you come across people as you start to talk about that they feel like the two can't coexist, the existence of vibration and and what that does and affect your body versus anything that would be on a religious background? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's funny you say that, because when I fell into this world of understanding spiritual energy, I didn't have any teachers in my life. I didn't have anyone who had the vocabulary to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
And oddly enough, one of the first two people that came into my life to help me understand what was going on both spiritually and consciously were religious people. I actually worked with a Swami for about a year, who explained to me the connection between consciousness, our awareness of ourselves. We spoke about the Gita, living well, speaking well, thinking positively, but also how that energy supports our behavior and our awareness. I also work with another religious person who explained to me how we can be vessels to help transfer energy. I mean, you talk about laying of the hands, people know that from religion, right?
Yes.
Where does that come from? Yeah, well, seriously, where does that come from? Jesus was a healer. Okay, what does that mean? So I don't think we can ignore the energy within religion if we really look at what some of these religious figures in our history that we know about have done to raise the world's awareness, their consciousness. You could say Mother Teresa was religious. I would say she was spiritual.
Mm.
Look at these people that we know of and what they've done to help elevate the consciousness of the planet and looking at the world in a different way. Many of them were religious figures. So we cannot separate energy from I would say, the benefits of living a decent moral life, that we're not harming anything. That in itself raises your vibration when you live without harm. And I mean, most religions, what religion do you know that promotes harm? So
Right.
there's a connection between the benefits of raising your vibration and understand how to live in a world where we're supportive and caring, as opposed to being in a destructive environment. So I do see some similarities, but don't get me wrong, there are some religious groups that feel, energy is evil, it's coming from some unknown source. What do you mean you can move a pendulum?
Right.
Metaphysics and religion has not always got along, because they don't know what source you're tapping into through metaphysics or channeling versus religion. So there are always going to be a debate going back and forth. Absolutely.
And that's exactly the point I wanted you to cover, that the two can and do coexist. And you just pointed out some very good examples biblically that shows that it must have been a correlation. It had to have been a connection, and always have and always will. You talk a little bit, before we move into some of the definitions I want to cover, you talk a little bit when you're speaking to an audience or in your book about where we come from, and that we all at some point were in our energy form before we took this present form.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a little more on that?
This is my personal experience in understanding that, before we were conceived, even we existed in some form of energy. There's always going to be energy. It transfers from one vessel to another. I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that our soul contains longevity of information and experiences. And so before we're conceived in the womb, we exist. I do believe that. And so in what form do we exist? And how do we bring in that knowledge and experience? Look at the personality of a child. You know, some of that is coming in. You know, you ever have, I mean, you've got kids, I've got kids. You go, where did they get that from? Well, it's not from me, it's not from you. And we're wondering, where's that coming from?
Right, right.
That's coming from them. They brought it in with them when they arrived here. And so the form of energy we took, before the physical form, there had to be a consciousness and energy, right? That's coming into our physical being. And so for me, my research that I've done, bioelectricity is a form of energy that actually helps regulate our growth, metabolism, the ability to breathe. There's an intelligence behind you sitting here, even taking a breath. We take it for granted because we're desensitized to that. Just sitting here inhaling and exhaling, there is an intelligence that says, Clark, you need to breathe.
Right.
Every 10 to 12 seconds, you better inhale or something's going to happen. You don't even think about it because we've been doing it all our lives. But that first breath is pretty painful, right?
And you really hit the nail on the head. There's so many things. Sometimes when I'm sitting around, I think about how marvelous the human body is and how many functions and things that we do as I'm looking at a person that happens, but we never think about it. We think it's it's on autopilot, but there's an energy that like you said, that functions and runs those things on a constant basis. So it's interesting. And I'm going off tangent here, but just follow me with this a little bit, because I'm happy when I speak with you. The same principle when we talk about energy coming into this existence, and we understand that the law of science is energy is consistent, and that energy just transfers; it's never dissipated. So it reminds me of when we do leave this corporal form, that our energies have to go somewhere. I mean, just by logic. And do you talk about any of that, or what's your thoughts on that? I know that's not part of your book.
I do have thoughts on that. I keep saying to my friends, I said, the last book I write will be about the details of my journey, crossing over and leaving the physical world, because as I said, energy transfers from one form to another. And so some people who have been put in a traumatic situation, it could have been a car accident or something traumatic happens, they have an out-of-body experience. When people say, I saw myself lying there and, doctors were working on me, but I was observing myself. That's an example of transferring energy. That consciousness has moved out of the physical body. And sometimes it's to protect the psyche because something traumatic and painful has happened. So that energy is there, but it's still conscious. You're observing yourself, right? Many people can relate to that statement. Many people can relate to having a strong sense someone's in danger. I need to reach out to so-and-so. Something's happened. Let me call so-and-so. That's that same connection that we have to a very intelligent energy source. So in my personal experience, that energy transfers when that little heart stops beating and we stop breathing. You can transfer that energy transfers out of the physical form into a different state of consciousness, and then we move on. And many people who have worked with people who have crossed over will tell you there's different stages we move through over time, depending, I believe, on how we lived our life here. And eventually, we should move on to a higher plane and be able to explore even higher experiences beyond the physical world. So that's my belief on that.
Thank you for indulging me on that. So let's get into some definitions for people who have not heard any of these principles before. What do you mean when you talk about personal vibratory rate?
So I'm going to start with the science and get into some of our habits. When I talk about one energy system, bioelectricity is the bioelectric energy, the currents that run through our bodies. And those currents support many things, as I said before: heart, brain, muscle, movement, inhalation, exhalation. And so those currents, if you think of your house being wired, those currents can get short-circuited or they could be flowing well. And so vibrational frequency is the rate of that flow from one point to another within our bodies. So think of it like, as I said, wiring your house.
Sure.
If you don't have enough, circuitry running through there, you're going to be shorting out fuses and blowing lights, etc. Within our bodies, that energy is always there. The difference is understanding that you, with certain practices, can begin to tune into that energy, pay attention to where you're having blocks or discomfort, or where you're having mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual blocks or discomfort, and start working with your energy system and being aware of that subtlety that we have. And you have to become, it's an introspection, it's a reflection, and you have to start paying attention to it. Paying attention to your thoughts, your patterns, your behaviors, all of it. So the energy within, the energy flow within the system of bioelectricity is called vibrational frequency. The frequencies can be low or high. We can influence it internally with certain personal practices. We are also influenced every day. We are influenced externally, what's coming into our life, what's coming into our being, the people we relate to. All of these things affect us. When you think about energy, energy is mutable. Your emotions are mutable, and we are emotional beings.
Right.
Depending on your interactions, depending on your value system, depending on your motives in life, all of these things, the emotional connection to these things affect your energy system as well. Stress, as you know, is a big factor that affects energy. Many people know, and everyone on the show can relate. The minute you are afraid, you contract, you tense up. You know, if I'm driving on the highway and I hear an ambulance or fire truck, what happens? Boom.
Automatic reflex. Yep.
Automatic reflex. You tense up. Guess what? You're actually choking that energy from flowing. The minute you feel fear, you're starting to restrict energy. The minute you're happy, every people fall in love, they don't feel like eating for 2 days, they're in love, first love, energy is flowing, they feel great, you're open, you feel lighter. The minute you feel fearful, you start to feel tense and heavy. And that's just a subtle way to distinguish between vibrational frequency revving up or coming down, just by feeling your body. Very good way to check in.
So I had this problem early on. I'm at the tail end of my 40s and my early end of the 40s when I thought, I had to be all things to everyone. Stress was a big, huge thing. And it literally almost took me out of here. I mean, nothing else was wrong with me. I was in pretty decent shape, but I had chronic ailments, chronic illnesses. I always thought I was having a heart attack. I mean, literally every other day, I could have sworn I was having a heart attack. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they all was like, "Oh, you need to rest. You need to take this pill. You need to do this." And then finally, this holistic doctor said, "You're just stressing. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's all mental." And until now, mental can definitely lead to something physical.
That's right.
But when you hit upon that stress affects that, I want to just, if you could just really hammer home, because especially with African-American male and female, I personally believe, because I think it's suggested that heart failure is I don't know if it's number 1 or 2 with African-Americans or in the diaspora all across the world. But I believe as an adjacent to that, it's from stress a lot of times. I mean, many of us are in great shape. I know people who have had heart failure who were athletes, but stress really does something to our frequency that I don't even know, what that looks like, but it must be horrible.
Yeah, and it affects different systems. Let me elaborate on that. That's a really good point. And I also will mention that there's some cultural stresses as well, but I want to deal with the regular stress for the moment. So as it relates to your brain, okay, when we are stressed, when you think about the thoughts flowing through your mind, when you are stressed, you don't have as much cohesive movement happening within the brain. We have 4 different brainwave states. We've got beta, we've got alpha, delta, theta. We go through these states. When we are stressed, we are kind of revving up and we're in beta mode. We're constantly fight or flight. We're constantly worried. They say 90% of your worries are perceived. They may not even be real, but we do have some real worries economically, financially, kids, relationships, whatever.
Right.
Pick one, okay? And so what happens to us is thoughts start racing through, they become incoherent, we get agitated, we feel anxious. The brain cannot manage at that state. It's revved up, it's overcharged, and it gets fragmented. And so we find ourselves forgetful, we find ourselves edgy, we're snapping, we're impatient. That's just your brain. So your vibrational frequency gets really, really low because now you're no longer coherent. You're not as aware as you are. You're letting your emotions run the place. The second thing about vibrational frequency and stress is how it affects you physically. We all respond and hold things in our bodies. I know people who have had financial stress and they've got chronic back pain.
Wow.
And there's a link between not feeling you have enough, you can't support your family, and then having this chronic back pain. Some people, fear goes in the back. Other people, they get stressed and they're feeling their joints. You know, shoulders are tight, the knees, everything's aching. We're holding on to these emotions and it's getting stored in our joints. The body is very receptive to holding on to things. So we have to find ways to help counteract stress, either through movement, if it's a physical issue where the stress is going. If it's not a physical issue, it could be an emotional state of stress. We need to find ways to have an outlet, talking to others who are supportive, talking to someone who you trust. We're human beings, we need to express. When we store things, that's when, like you said, Clark, the heart, chest gets tight, everything's tight. Some people have, I know so many people with digestive issues these days, right? The gut, everything goes in their gut literally. They can't stomach life anymore. They're ending up with ulcers and IBS and all these things. So when it comes to stress, one of the things we have to recognize, number one, identify what your stresses are. Break it on down, identify it. Some of the stress we have comes from fear. Some of the fear is real, some of the fear isn't real. I've known people who are afraid to do public speaking and they're stressed out, they're throwing up before they go on stage. It's not even their own fear, it's a fear of something was told to them as a child, or they believe somebody else, or we get influenced by people. And that in and of itself affects us. So the things that you can do, and which is what I talk about in both books, but more importantly, the first book, Raise Your Vibration, is identify the stress and start putting in daily habits to counteract the stress. There's so many techniques we can do. The one thing that I know we don't do enough of in North America is take time out, be by yourself, breathe. For me, walking it off is great. I go for a walk. If I've got too much on the brain, I literally have to move and breathe. And so we need to honor our energy. When we get to that burning point where it's tipping too far left or right, take time out for yourself and start doing things that are going to help you get clarity, help you release some emotional tension, physical tension. Take time out for you. It's very important we do that. Very important.
I recently, 7 months ago, I got into running, and I started by walking first. Didn't think I would ever run, but then just kind of picked up the pace. The reason is because my trainer, remembers when I was kind of stressing out, and we fall back into it from time to time. And he made a good point. He said, the one thing you cannot do at the same time is be tired and stressed at the same time. You're either going to be extremely tired or you're going to be stressed. You got to choose which one you want.
Good point.
So that was, so I now run like a fanatic. I actually did a 5K this morning. And so it is my respite. Anytime I think I'm going, across the bridge to stress land, I will immediately just go out for a run until I just get so tired I'm thinking about everything but stress or whatever the problem was. So definitely physical exercise, I'm sure, is probably one of the number one things you can do.
Yeah, it definitely is beneficial. And I'll tell you, one of the benefits is, now on the beneficial side of movement or breath work with vibrational frequency, we need energy. We are energetic beings. We expend energy every day, right? We're talking,
Right.
we're working, we're thinking. There has to be a reciprocation. So in order to maintain a healthy vibrational rate, in order to make sure your energy systems aren't depleted, which causes stress, you need to absorb energy. And how do you do that? We can absorb energy from food, high frequency food. Some of them I mentioned, more natural, more organic, pure. The closer to the ground, the tree, the branch, it's going to have more energy that we can use right away. I'm not a big fan of processed foods, as you know. I call it dead food, right?
Right.
Second thing, you're a runner. You understand the importance. The movement you get, it's not just about moving your legs and the lungs are expanding. You're absorbing energy from the oxygen. And so many people in North America don't even breathe properly. They breathe very shallow. So in order to absorb what we call chi energy or prana energy, we need to absorb a sufficient quantity and let oxygen flow through us. So by you running, Clark, you're already bringing in a lot of the good stuff. You're expending more energy. Your lungs are working harder for you. You're feeding your cells. And
Right.
so, right, the blood's cleaner, the muscles are stronger, and the oxygen is going through you. And so it's a beautiful cycle of keeping energy flowing, keeping oxygen flowing, keeping all the systems moving. It's like people tune up their car, but they don't tune up their body. You've got a car, every 5,000 clicks, you're getting an oil change. When's the last time you had a personal oil change? There you go. And so we need to honor the body, honor the energy. They go hand in hand. And breath work is one of the best ways to help raise your frequency and actually help rebalance your energy systems. Keep it moving, keep it flowing.
So we're on that topic. Can you give an example, verbal example of what one type of breath work would be that a person listening to this could start to implement when they feel themselves going down stress lane?
Absolutely. Now I'll give you two examples. One you can do sitting. The other you can do, before you get out of bed or before you go to bed at night. So if you're in a stressful environment, personally or professionally, you need a break. You can sit, keep your back straight, slowly inhale, and make sure the breath goes as low as it can, not at the chest. You want to get the breath as low into the stomach as possible. And as you inhale, allow your diaphragm to expand. It has a couple of benefits. Metaphysically speaking, as we let air move to that lower part of our stomach, there is a system of energy and a point called a tantien. It has many names in different cultures. It's right behind the navel. You want to allow the breath to go about an inch behind that navel and just relax your stomach and expand that energy. And you'll find a lot of your worries will melt away because we're storing it in our gut. Our gut is a huge reservoir of emotional stress, emotional trauma, worries. We literally keep it in our gut. Some things that have happened to us in the past, we tend to store it in the gut. So by relaxing the gut, you're allowing some of that tension to literally ooze out of you. It's really important to do deep belly breathing. And you can do that sitting down at a desk or, go in your car, take a break at lunch, and just breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. And at some point, inhale if you can for a count of 6, hold it for 1, and exhale for a count of 6, and get into a rhythm, a pattern of breathing. And you'll start to feel a lot of tension just melt away. It's really important to breathe. Yeah.
Now, have you ever heard of this? Someone shared this with me 10 years ago, and to this day, I don't know if it's psychologically it works or what, but they said if you ever feel like you're going down stress or anger or anything that negative like that, to look skyward, to just look straight up into the sky. You can't be in the house, obviously. You would have to be outside. Right. And looking heavenward, I guess it, would be the objective or the kind of connotation. But looking upward in the sky, it's something tranquil about it. It's something majestic about it that calms you down. And who knows if it's a reality thing, but honestly, it just does something for me. Have you ever heard of that before?
For me, not so much the sky, and it depends what you're drawn to. I'm a water element. Like, I like water. For me, looking at water.
Right.
Looking along the water does it for me. For you, you might be an air sign. I don't know if you're into astrology.
Yes,
but
I very much am. Yes.
Right. So if you're into air, for you, it could be looking up into the sky. Other people need to go walking in the forest. They feel a sense of support and strength. Some people love the water. They feel things are washing away. Whatever you're attracted to, pay attention. Very important. The only thing I'm going to say not to do, if you're feeling stressed, don't go grab a burger. We don't want emotional. Yeah. You better go for a run with Clark. You better call up Clark and go join him on his run, because it's better to move the body than pile on the calories. Definitely don't do that.
So real quick, I want to get us moving forward a bit. Let's talk about external vibrations. Now, we're going to go into a little more detail in just a moment, but I want to talk about, if you could just touch spaces, because you talk much about the mind, body, spirit synergy.
Networking.
And so I just want to touch these three things, because these are things that affect us so much in life, which are our music, television, and our electronic devices, which are becoming, almost religious icons in and of themselves. But in your experience, how do those things affect our vibration, and whether it's good or bad?
Yeah, absolutely. Music. I started playing music when I was 3, loved it. Piano was my first love. And then after my awakening, I discovered some very high frequency instruments in singing bowls. And that took on a whole new meaning for me. The connection between music and physical self, we have to understand the heart. When we hear music in a certain pattern, a certain beat, depending on the tempo, we start to resonate with that sound. And that actually, our heartbeat starts to resonate with it. So people who do drumming, for instance, you can get into a drumming and it's meditative, and next thing you know, you're feeling like you are the drum, and your heart starts resonating with that beat. When you slow down the tempo, your heart begins to respond and slow down as well. When you pick up the tempo, our heart starts to syncopate and resonate with that tempo. So wow. Music in and of itself, I'm not going to talk about lyrics. That's another topic for another day. Music in and of itself can either elevate us, it can sedate us, it can excite us, it can take us back in time. You might hear a song, maybe you hear Nat King Cole, you think of, I don't know, you go back in time, right? We hear certain songs and we relate to a certain element. But when you think about the effect that the musical beats has on our heart and our brain, it can actually energize us, or it can actually wind us down. So it's important to be conscious of what you're listening to. Lyrics aside, be conscious of whether you find that music to be soothing. Is it too stimulating? Is it too much of a high tempo where you actually begin to feel stressed because you just can't keep up with the beat? You'll notice back in the 40s and 50s, things were really slow.
Sure.
We got to the 60s, the tempo went up. We got into the 80s, it was and we keep going up and up. That's not a natural progression. The original form of music on this planet was cyclical. It moved in a spiral. It wasn't straight 4/4 beats and all that. So when you listen to music in that nature and some of the classical music you might listen to, you'll feel yourself going in a spiral, and that's actually beneficial for our brains as well. So pay attention to what you're listening to. It's either going to excite you, it's going to relax you, it's going to soothe you, or it might actually, have a negative impact on you. But the beat is also important. because you don't want to be overly excited and feel stressed. When it comes to TV, certain musical instruments carry certain frequencies that are beneficial, not just to listen to, but it helps put you in a more, a deeper state of awareness. For me, as I said, it's singing bowls. Other people love listening to drums. Someone else might like listening to brass instruments, for instance. Find what works for you. Find what gets you to that place where you're going to be a little bit more aware and conscious and relaxed. When our brain cycles down from beta and it moves down to alpha, alpha is where we're relaxed, we're calm, we're open to suggestions. Between alpha and we're cycling down a little lower, we begin to have insight, we get clarity. So the calmer your brain can be, the easier it is for ideas to flow. Answers will come to you. It's a really good thing to take a break and get to that nice state. Music can help you get there. The connection between vibrational frequency and television, I have a whole chapter in my book on the vibration of the media. On a personal note, we decided as a family to stop watching TV for about 7 or 8 years, raising 3 kids. Check out that chapter. We did survive. It was great.
You're still here.
They're still here. They still talk to us. Yeah, they're good. And oddly enough, most of my 3 kids hardly watch TV today. The media is designed to convince you that you need something. Many of the messages in the media commercials are designed to give you a sense that you're missing something, you don't have enough, there's something incomplete about you if you really look at these commercials. And so for me, the commercials in and of itself was giving us a sense that I'm missing something, I'm lacking something. And the minute you start thinking that you're lacking something in life, you begin to look out for stimulus and you look out to fill the well. And I believe you're born with everything. Everything you need, you have.
Wow.
We have everything. We came fully loaded. That's my belief.
I like that.
We came here fully loaded. We got everything we need. The beliefs that you've inherited, the social standards you've inherited, some of the things you've been taught may limit your beliefs, but we came here fully loaded. That's my belief. The content of most television shows, you and I were talking earlier, Clark.
Yeah.
Not a lot of substance.
No, it's not.
Everyone's checking out everyone else's life. Reality TV is taking over. How many educational shows can you say you've seen in the last 2 months, honestly?
Okay,
What has inspired you in the last 2 months on TV?
Nothing on TV.
There you go. So you're not really getting much for it. And there's an actual theory that the more you watch TV, it's like you're brain dead. Your brain just checks out.
Wow.
There's a whole theory about watching TV and the mind being blank and the fact that most people can't recall what they've heard after 2 hours of watching a show. So you're not retaining much. Basically, you're feeding your eyes. My experience with television is that there were a lot of negative information, a lot of fear that we get from the news. There's a lot of sensationalism, a lot of gossip, a lot of hype. All of these things do not elevate the mind. They do not elevate our consciousness. They don't bring me to a higher state of being, in my opinion. And so our family made a conscious decision not to get too involved with television. But pay attention to the messages you get from TV, especially commercials. And that's where I feel it's like supporting the idea that you're not complete. You don't have enough. You need something. Something's lacking. And I think those messages affect us as adults, but they also affect our children. And the minute you start to believe you're incomplete, you're going to be looking for things to help fill that gap. Be it, some kids want to go shopping for clothes, and then 2 months later they need more clothes. You go buy a car today, and in 4 years you need another car. I've known people have bought 5, 6 cell phones in 12 months because they're not happy. Oh, I need this one because this gives me this, and last year's model doesn't have it.
Right. The camera is better on this one.
I have better pictures on this one. This one actually does FaceTime. I've seen people buy 6 phones in a year.
Oh, wow.
I'd like we should do a survey, Clark. How many people have bought more than 2 cell phones in a year?
You know what? I'm going to put that out there. Let's see what happens. It's probably going to be a high number. I'm shooting at 60%. What do you think?
At least 60%. That's a prime example of not believing you do not have enough.
Wow. Yeah.
You know?
Well, I want to switch this because we've got about 15 more minutes. I want us to talk about your newest book, How to Raise the Vibration Around You, a fascinating read, which really goes into the 4 elements. And I just want us to touch on them one at a time and talk about this. So go ahead.
I should tell you why I wrote that book. That was a whole different motive for writing that book.
Okay.
So quickly, Raise Your Vibration, Transform Your Life. The first book was all about what I learned coming back as a more spiritually aware person and a higher consciousness. And it really explains and gives people true, practical habits and exercises to help raise their frequency, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. So a few years later, I'm a grandma, proud of it. And so I wanted to write a book to help educate people on working with the planet. Let's start to be a little more healthy, environmentally conscious, pay attention to what we're consuming and what we're bringing into our homes, and raising the vibration of where we live and where we work. Because raising your own personal vibration is one thing. You can be calm and aware, and whether you're meditating or you're in a good, happy space, you're not letting stress get the best of you. But what about the other people you live with? What about when you come home? How do you feel? So Raise the Vibration Around You is a book about working with nature, working with creating a better, healthier, calmer, less stressful environment where you live and work. I use the 4 elements because I clearly believe that we need to pay attention to the water we're drinking, how we use water, pay attention to the type of lighting in your home. I want people to know there's healthy lighting and there's unhealthy lighting. I wanted people to also understand how to work with sunlight, moonlight, how to raise the frequency within your home, and using some natural forces. And there's a whole section in that book about working with nature, whether you're into gardening or you're looking for clean, organic food. There's resources. If you're really into technology, we didn't talk too much about that. If you realize that wireless technology, EMFs, all of these things are affecting you, impacting you in a way that's negative, there's a whole list of resources in the back of the book where you can connect to other organizations and groups who are promoting safe technology, promoting ways to eliminate a lot of negative EMFs and things that are affecting us, not just physically. It's also, there's now proven studies, it's affecting our mental capacity, retention. There is a link between brain aneurysms and some of the technologies that we have surrounding our being that's affecting our ability to function. So I encourage people to check out the resources there. Quickly talking about water. How do you raise the vibrational frequency of water?
Well, before you do that, I want to read this because when you gave your introduction and why you read that and that we have a responsibility to Earth, it reminded me of what you wrote in your dedication. It's just 2 lines, but it's so impactful. How we treat the Earth is the reflection of how we treat our bodies. I had to read that because when I was going through the book, I stopped on that and really thought about that and thought about how am I now treating, because I treat my body a heck of a lot better than I did 10 years ago. I mean, so, but it is true. It's a diametric opposition of what I was and what I was doing. And by the way, shout out to, because I'll be getting texts all through this chat we're having. And first of all, question from Christina Lockett. Are you a singer or musician or both?
I'm more of a musician. Piano is my first love, and I do perform singing bowl meditations all over. So musician, yes.
Okay. And so before I move on, let's see, I'm trying to multitask here. Give me a second. I want to make sure I get everybody in. All right, come on. So at any rate, it's not working. But anyway, Joyce, shout out to you, Joyce. Joyce said your breathing technique is already working. So apparently she's doing it now at home, and she says it's working right now as we speak. So
fantastic.
If you have a question and you're listening in, there's a Q&A button. Just click on that. I can see your question. Just type it in and hit send, and I'll see it, and I'll try to read it. So back to where we were. Let's start, if you would, with the air we breathe, because I love this chapter, because there is a certain we do have a certain ability to control within our homes the air that we breathe, and you come up with many ways to do that. Can you just kind of touch on one or two?
Absolutely. So as it relates to vibrational frequency, there's two types of ions in the air. Air has negative ions and positive ions. Negative ions are beneficial for our beings. Too many positive ions in the air are not beneficial. So in the book, I define what these are and what causes both, how you can actually influence more negative ions. Negative ions, there's some scientific information in the book. It's been linked to better mental capacity, higher retention rate, more sense of calm and peace, and it helps induce alpha brainwaves. And alpha brainwaves are very important because it's that first level where we're not feeling so stressed. The natural ways, two ways you can get negative ions generated in your home is either by using the Himalayan salt lamps. The Himalayan salt lamps can help disperse negative ions through the salt as it disperses in the air. A second way you can get negative ions is by using a certain specific type of beeswax candle. And I've listed in the book where you can actually obtain those and why they are beneficial. It's the only beeswax candle that generates negative ions. Many of the candles you buy commercially are so diluted and mixed with other substances, you're not going to get the same benefits. And then the third way, you can also use essential oils in an air diffuser to help not only raise the frequency and have more negative ions. Different oils can also bring about different emotional states. So you can calm your house down. You can have a more soothing environment just through smell. The smell affects the brain, and the brain will then take in and create an emotion where we're less stressed. So you can change your home and raise the frequency with air using natural substances. And everything I present in the book is natural. You don't need batteries. You don't need to plug anything in.
Right. All right, so let's go to sounds around us.
Absolutely. Nature has a lot of beautiful sounds around us. If you're living in the city, it's a little hard to get some of those sounds. So I would encourage you, if you're living out, if you have a home, you can put wind chimes up outside your home. The harmonics of certain sounds will help create harmony in your space and around your home. So if you've got wind chimes, it's a great one to use. If you're open to playing certain types of music at home, again, I can't tell you what you like, but pick the music you like that puts you in a good state, calm state, a soothing state, music that comforts you, whatever that happens to be. Choose what resonates with you. That's the key thing, right? I'm not imposing on you what to pick. Just pick the right thing that puts you in a good state. So sounds are important. And unfortunately, if you live in the city, you're going to have to bring in your own type of music. So whether it's a CD or little things you can put in your home to create some harmony of sound is really important.
Excellent. All right. And let's move to the lighting. You touched on it briefly. I know in your book, you go in great detail. By the way, we're going to get everybody to know where this book at in just a few minutes, but there's so many different types of lighting. I never thought about it, but you really did your homework on that. But can you just maybe point out one or two that can alter one's vibrational frequency within your home?
Yeah, absolutely. So fluorescent lighting does exude a certain, I'm going to call a certain vibration, and fluorescent lighting has been known in schools and hospitals to actually promote a sense of discomfort. Some people, the flickering lights in and of itself will cause them to have issues, headaches. Other people are very sensitive to fluorescent lighting. It actually induces feelings of depression. And so you can alter that by picking a light that allows you to have the full spectrum, all full 7 rays of light. So full spectrum lighting is something you can start to explore. It helps reduce that feeling that we get just from being under fluorescent lights, which is very limited in the bandwidth of what you're getting in terms of frequency. The second type of lighting I want people to pay attention to, and I get into some scientific evidence in the book, the new light bulbs that are now on virtually every store shelf is the compact fluorescent bulbs. They're the twisted light bulbs, and they created those light bulbs. They were designed to save energy. However, they also contain mercury, and studies have been done in Germany and the US, and I've referenced them in the book, that explain what happens when you turn on these light bulbs. Because of their design, it's not a flawless design, and certain chemicals will seep out into your environment. And so when you read the section, you'll explore for yourself, but you'll understand that some of the chemicals in these light bulbs, when they're turned on, do promote or influence an increase in certain types of cancers, okay? So we need to explore other types of lighting options that are safer, cleaner for your home, and I've listed 5 other options in the book, from LEDs to various other light bulbs that don't contain chemicals and also have a long shelf life. So I wanted people to know, don't just take what you see. Don't just accept what's on the shelf. Read the label, pay attention, look at other options for lighting, things that are cleaner and healthier, because guess what, Clark? Those new compact fluorescents, you can't just throw them in the garbage.
Wow.
Right? So
right.
the EPA, and I've quoted them in the book, the EPA has said, if these light bulbs break, it's a toxic hazard. How do you clean up that mess? It's mercury. And so you have to take them to a special facility and dispose of these bulbs. So please, we work hard for our money, right, Clark? We work hard.
Absolutely.
Let us purchase the safest, cleanest things, bring into our home. We want to have healthy families, and we don't want to pollute this planet. We've done enough damage. We need to start detoxing our homes and detoxing the planet. That's really what it's all about, longevity. And so I share with listeners how to detox your home, air, light, water, and various natural ways as well.
And David wants to know if you could cover briefly increasing the vibration in our water.
Yes, water, of course, we need water to survive.
Sure.
When it comes to the water that you're drinking, again, if you're living in the town, city, or out in the country, we need to filter our water and remove things that might be harmful. I've listed 3 options in the book, but one of the most beneficial things we have personally used is a reverse osmosis filter, which removes all of the sediments, it removes chemicals, it purifies the water, but the last filter is a mineral filter, so that you're remineralizing your water. It's like you're drinking spring water. Wow. We were designed to drink water that is high frequency. And so the water must contain minerals, because guess what? Our bodies, we need vitamins and minerals to live, right? So
Absolutely.
we need, by remineralizing your water, you're making sure that your water does not contain harmful substances, but you're getting beneficial minerals. And can I throw out that name? Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
So it's Mineral Pro. That's the filters that we use. Whether we're on a well or in the city, we've always used it. 3 filters to clean and purify, the last filter to remineralize.
What are your thoughts on alkaline water? I'm sorry to cut you off.
You can alkalize your water, but we cannot be 100% alkaline. That's almost impossible. Okay. The goal within your body is to balance your pH. So if you're acidic, you want to have more alkaline foods and beverages to get to a balanced pH. That's the goal. You can't be alkaline, and to be too acidic is also a problem. You want to be balanced. And so the way you do that, you can take tests to check your pH, litmus paper, etc. Start introducing more alkaline foods and drinks, and then check your pH regularly to see where you are on the spectrum. The closer you can get to the middle, the better off you're going to be. The purpose of keeping your body alkaline is there's a connection between mutation in cancerous cells, and acidity. So if we can create a more alkaline pH balance, pH balanced body, then we're going to have a better chance of keeping our cells regenerating properly. We don't want to have mutation. That's where the body breaks down and we get into illness and disease, because we have now tipped the scales and we're too acidic. So it's important to get pH balanced, and our emotions can also help us. The more anger and stress and fear we hold, the more acidic our bodies. That's a very big point. So pay attention to your emotional state. As you move towards a more calmer, peaceful state of mind, you actually help get your pH to be balanced. So the emotions also play a part of that, not just food.
Where's
sorry,
the time gone? That's what I'm wondering now. It's already 55 minutes. What happened?
Listen, your friend that was in great shape and had a heart attack, he could have been eating really well. You're right, that stress tipped the scales. So our emotional state can also affect, we can be a great eater, but our emotional state can affect. I just wanted to say that it's really important.
And that's hugely important. So I want to talk, first of all, thank you so much. Great information. And I know, and listen, for everybody who's listening out there, what you really have to do is get her 2 books so that you can dive into some specifics. She goes into tremendous amount of detail into both of the books, along, as she said before, with some other places you can go to get more information are listed in there as well. But let's talk about, for a couple of minutes, Awaken Your Senses, Come Home to Nature, 7-day retreat that you are going to be presenting in Costa Rica in October. Can you tell us more about who should be there and how they can sign up?
Absolutely. We fell in love with this country a few years ago. Costa Rica, we're hosting a 7-day inclusive retreat. We're near the coast, up in the mountains, overlooking the Pacific. Awaken Your Senses is just that. We're going to explore awakening your senses, awareness, being in harmony with nature. If you love singing bowls, every night we're going to be doing singing bowl meditations and explore the beauty of that country. This retreat is for anyone who is really stressed, needs a break mentally, physically, emotionally. Anyone who is just caught up in a lot of hustle and bustle. If you appreciate nature, come on out, because we're going to spend a lot of time in nature. Ocean, land, all of it. We've got wonderful day trips planned. And we hope people come away with just a deeper sense of who they are and being able to elevate their awareness and elevate their consciousness. And bring back home with them the knowing that you can create that peaceful environment if you choose to, and how to do it at home. So October 1st to 7th, visit the website, raiseyourvibration.ca. Both books are available. If you purchase them on that site, you'll get an autographed copy delivered to you. Right, Clark?
That is absolutely correct. I have mine.
Yeah, and so raiseyourvibration.ca is where you can find out about the Costa Rica retreat. You can also get the books. There's a couple of things you can download for free. A beautiful song about love. Love is all, and that's available for free as well. So just visit us at raiseyourvibration.ca.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are winding down. I want to thank everybody for coming out and starting off this first series here, Taking Back Your Life 2016. This is a wonderful start. And thank you again for being my first guest and giving us such insight to vibrations for those who are new and for those who are constantly practicing the principles. By the way, guys, you can also, for those who didn't get the information, you can visit our website at my name, Clark Garrison. It's actually below. So for those who don't know how to spell it, clarkgarrison.com. You'll see a big, huge banner. It has more details and information on how you can sign up. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dawn, there's a early bird special you have, correct?
Yes, there's an early bird on the retreat. The early bird ends May 31st. Clark's got it on his page, so check it out. As I said, it's all inclusive, and you're going to love the view. It's a beautiful part of Costa Rica, right on the Pacific coast. Clark, I want to say I'm so honored to be your first guest. I love what you do, and I thank you so much for inviting me. And it's been a great reunion. I know we did a show a few years back, and thanks for getting me on Google Hangout. A lot of my
Your first time, right?
yeah, my friends were shocked. Dawn's going to be on Google Hangout. What's going on? So
love it. Well, my pleasure. Absolutely. I've always been a huge fan of your work and what you do since the very first time I was introduced to you. So this just made sense. And by the way, guys, you got to get a copy of this book. It is amazing. I mean, literally, I'm kind of upset because my first book I lent out to a good friend of mine because he begged me for it. But now I need to go collect it back because I like my books. I have to have my books with me at all times. And by the way, yeah, I'm sorry.
Here's the first baby.
Yes, there it is. So we're about to wrap up. Again, for more information about taking back your life, just go to my website at clarkgarrison.com. Click on the banner or the sign that says for more information, and you'll see our complete lineup. By the way, our next guest will be February 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Miss Angel Richards. She's going to be covering the topic, living a clutter-free life, both physically and mentally. A wonderful presentation that will be. Thank you so very much. Be sure to tell a friend the next time. And by the way, do not be average. It's the best of worst and the worst of the best. And that's certainly something you do not want to be. We'll see you next time. Thank you so very much.
Bye.